They lurk in the background and behind the scenes. Their motives unclear, their origins shrouded in mystery. Vanishing as quickly as they appeared, they leave behind only questions and enigmatic clues, never to be seen again. Are these the hidden hands of a sinister agenda, or merely tragic cases of mistaken identity? Look in the shadows of history to find mysterious figures. It was the evening of March 18th, 1984, in Nishinomiya, Japan, as Katsuhisa Izaki, president of confectionery company Izaki Glyco, relaxed in a bath at his house. His peace would soon be interrupted as two masked men, appearing to be armed, abducted him after having bound his wife, daughter, and mother. The assailants ignored the businessman's offers of money as they abducted him to a warehouse in Osaka, although would later issue a ransom demand of 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold bullion. Izaki would escape 3 days later by loosening his ropes and breaking down a door to the outside, with none of the ransom having ever been paid. The mysterious criminals were not done, however, as the following month saw a car set aflame in parking lot outside an Izaki Glyco trial production building, as well as a container of hydrochloric acid placed outside of one of their warehouses with a threatening note. It was also around this time that Japanese police began to receive taunting letters, the first of which read, "To Japanese police fools, are you stupid? There's so many of you, what on earth are you doing? If you are real pros trying to catch me, there's too much handicap, so I will give you a hint. There's no fellows in the Izaki's relatives. There's no fellows in Nishinomiya Police. There's no fellows in Flood Fighting Corps. Car I used is gray. Food was bought at Dai. If you want new info, beg for it in the newspaper." It was signed by the figure that would make this case truly infamous, the monster with 21 faces. Following letter was sent to local newspapers as well as police. To police fools, you shouldn't lie. If you lie, you steal. I also sent this to the Koshin police. Why are you lying? Don't hide things. Why are you complaining? You guys are having such a hard time, so I will give you a hint. I entered the factory from the side staff entrance. The typewriter we used is a PAN writer. The plastic container used was a piece of street garbage. Subsequent threats to poison Glyco products with potassium cyanide caused mass panic and product recalls, resulting in $130 million losses to the company, although no poison was ever found. Grainy footage of what would become known as the videotaped man was captured, with him placing Glyco chocolate on the store shelf wearing a baseball cap, though he was never identified. Things appeared to settle in June, with the press receiving a letter that said, "We're satisfied. The president of Glyco has already gone around with his head hanging down long enough. We would like to forgive him. In our group there's a 4-year-old kid. Every day he cries for Glyco. We also have eaten none for a long time, and we used to eat it all the time. It's a drag to make a kid cry because he's deprived of the candy he loves." However, the group's focus had merely shifted to other food companies, namely Morinaga, who refused to submit to their demands for money, a letter stating, "In autumn, when appetites are strong, sweets are really delicious. When you think sweets, no matter what you say, it's Morinaga. We've added some special flavor. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter. It won't cause tooth decay, so buy the sweets for your kids." This time, 20 boxes of Morinaga candy were confiscated by police from store shelves, each one with a sticker proclaiming, Danger, contains poison. These products later tested positive for sodium cyanide. Morinaga agreed to pay 200 million yen to the group, with a drop arranged in Kyoto. It was here that police would encounter another mysterious figure they would dub the Fox-Eyed Man. Although they pursued the suspicious individual, he managed to evade them in a stolen car equipped with a police scanner. A man matching the Fox-Eyed Man's description would be seen near other drop-off locations as the monster continued to harass dozens of other companies. The mocking letters also continued, with a shocking twist in the case occurring in the August of 1985, when Police Superintendent Shoji Yamamoto doused his body in kerosene and set himself on fire. This would prompt the group's final letter. Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. In the end, the case resulted in dozens of false leads, dead ends, and suspects, several of which took their own lives while under scrutiny. Among those suspected involvement were disgruntled employees, the Yakuza, and even North Korean agents. More fringe theories claim that the crimes were driven by an occult agenda or curse. The organization's name itself is an apparent reference to the villain of a popular mystery novel by Edogawa Ranpo, suggesting the perpetrators saw themselves as cunning antagonists, rarely collecting the ransoms they demanded. With their motives unclear and their uncanny ability to evade law enforcement, to this day no one has ever solved the mystery of who was behind the monster with 21 faces. Seeming to burst onto the scene of high society in 1740s Paris, the man many knew as the Comte de Saint-Germain enthralled those around him with his very presence. A virtual wellspring of knowledge, he possessed vast understanding of the sciences, art, history, and diplomacy, able to speak over half a dozen languages fluently. Among several aliases, his German designation became known as Der Wonderman. Despite his obvious high level of education and access to extraordinary wealth, the Comte remained secretive about his origins. When questioned about his family lineage, he remained vague and evasive, never giving his surname or birthplace, and sometimes offering conflicting answers. Even more strangely, he spoke of past events as of having first-hand experience, implying that he had been present at historical occurrences that transpired centuries ago, such as meeting Cleopatra or Jesus Christ. A skilled entertainer, the Wonderman could play both the violin and harpsichord, as well as compose his own music. Also utilizing visual mediums, he produced his own paintings and even developed a technique that made colors appear more luminous. His works were exemplary enough to win praise from other artists of the time, such as Jean-Philippe Rameau. Strangely, the mystery man was rarely seen eating at lavish social gatherings, stating he subsisted on a special diet. Chemistry was also a field of expertise for the Comte de Saint-Germain. Known for having the ability to remove flaws from diamonds, as well as claiming to be able to transmute base metals into gold, and even brew an elixir of life that could prolong youth, although no evidence of this exists. This knowledge even branched outward into esoteric, occult, and alchemical studies. Of course, with such a magnetic personality and profound depth of intelligence, the Comte drew the attention of Europe's royalty. A favorite advisor of Louis XV, He also served in his secret du Roi network and was granted his own laboratory at Chateau de Chambord to conduct his experiments. He was briefly arrested in London in 1745 under suspicion of being a Jacobite spy, but was released due to lack of evidence, and would again be forced to flee in 1760 despite ingratiating himself with the British upper class. From there, the Comte traveled to Germany under the pseudonyms Count Weldon or Marquis de Montferrat. Here he resided with Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel in Eckernford, where he continued to perform his experiments, though he may have also gone as far as Russia to briefly meet Catherine the Great. Details on this are scarce. During his travels, the Comte would unexpectedly vanish from one city, only to resurface in another. Reports of his death circulated in Eckernford in 1784, although the circumstances surrounding this are as vague as the Comte's origin. Due to this, many suspect the man faked his passing, vanishing into history. Indeed, reported sightings of the legend continued sporadically into the 20th century, with several placing him at revolutionary events. Who was the Comte de Saint-Germain? Sinister theories abound concerning his noted links to the Rosicrucians and Freemasons, allowing him to manipulate the rulers of various nations to unknown ends. Some believe he was merely the illegitimate son of nobility, while others hold that his mastery of alchemy granted him immortality, or that he could travel through time. Regardless, it is clear that the one they call the Wonderman lived a life of intrigue. It was a cold day typical of the Russian winter in the remote village of Pokrovskoye on January 21st, 1869. Here, an illiterate peasant family welcomed the next of their many children, one of the few that would survive into adulthood. Little did they know, their newest child would one day shape the foundations of the Russian Empire itself. The son of farmer Yefim and his wife Anna, Grigory Rasputin spent his early years working on the family farm, developing a robust physique. Receiving minimal education, he became known for his intense personality, growing fond of drinking and womanizing as a young man. Indeed, the very name Rasputin translates roughly into debauched one. It would be a brush with the law at age 18 that would determine Rasputin's fateful path in life. A pilgrimage to Verkhodory Monastery exposed him to their ecstatic method of worship, triggering a religious awakening in the youth. Declaring himself a holy man, Rasputin embarked on journeys as far as Jerusalem in Greece, claiming to receive divine visions and the ability to heal the sick. These wanderings would continue even after the monk returned to his home village to marry and have children. Preaching a combination of Orthodox Christian teachings and folk mysticism, Rasputin emphasized a personal relationship with God and repentance of sin. It was this claim to the supernatural that brought the attention of the Russian aristocracy upon him as Rasputin preached in St. Petersburg in 1905, specifically the Romanov family. With the nation falling into disarray and their son Alexei ill with hemophilia, Tsar Nicholas II and his wife Alexandra were desperate for the help Rasputin seemed to offer. As luck would have it, young Alexei seemed to be cured when he was visited by Rasputin during one of his bleeding episodes. This cemented Alexandra's faith in the monk's power, giving him much influence over her decisions. Rasputin's erratic advice would decide who the Tsar appointed as ministers, and even military strategies during the First World War. Unsurprisingly, these decisions only served to harm Russia and the royal family's reputation. Despite his pious veneer, Rasputin lived a life of debauchery, reportedly hosting drunken orgies with women from various strata of society under the pretext that sin and repentance brought one closer to God. In 1914, he would be stabbed by a former prostitute who claimed that he was the Antichrist. This attack would foreshadow Rasputin's fate. As of 1916, relatives of the royal family and the Duma enacted a conspiracy to end him in St. Petersburg. Led by Prince Felix Yusupov, the troublesome monk was taken to Moika Palace, where his wife supposedly waited. Here, he was fed cakes and wine laced with cyanide, which appeared to have no effect. Drawing his handgun, Yusupov then shot Rasputin in the chest, only to have him revive and attack before fleeing outside. Here, he was beaten and shot by another assailant before being wrapped in a carpet and dumped into the icy Nevka River. An autopsy conducted after his body was recovered days later suggested Rasputin may have finally died from drowning. Rasputin's death did not save the Russian Empire, which was too far gone by then, but his life left a legacy. He foresaw his own death as a warning that the imperial families would soon follow, and seemed to draw a following from his rumored healing powers. Like Comte de Saint-Germain, he was a manipulator with possible ties to the Freemasons and Rosicrucians that granted him forbidden knowledge. Whether a madman or one with actual supernatural abilities, Grigory Rasputin continues to cast a shadow over history. The ocean waves lapped gently on the shore of Sandy Cove, Nova Scotia, Canada, on the day of September 8, 1863. It was here that a local boy named George Colin Albright would make a shocking discovery, finding a man near death at the beach's high water mark. With both legs professionally amputated below the knee, the remaining stumps of his severed limbs had been bandaged, and the stranger had been left with a jug of fresh water and some rations. In his delirious state, the figure seemed to moan a single word among his guttural vocalizations: Jerome. With no known acquaintances in the area, the man they called Jerome became a ward of the community. Originally taken in by the family of Colin and Mary Ann Como, he was nursed back to health, but still could not communicate beyond grunts or by uttering his supposed moniker. Attempts to speak to him both English and French failed, as well as other languages once a linguist was brought in. Although he was a quiet guest, providing for Jerome proved to be a strain on resources, leading him to then move in with Jean and Juliette Gidney, as well as several other families. As for Jerome's real identity or place of origin, there was only conjecture. Appearing to be in his late 20s at the time of his discovery, his hands were soft and unaccustomed to hard labor, and he wore clothing of fine material, hinting at an upper-class background. With darker features, a Mediterranean ethnicity seemed likely, coupled with the fact he seemed enraged whenever the Austrian city of Trieste was mentioned, an area with a high Italian population. Some believe he may have been a pirate that ran afoul of his crew, or even a disinherited European noble that was forced into exile. Standoffish around people, Jerome also seemed to enjoy the company of children. Having lived in the area for some time, a new twist in Jerome's story would occur in 1908. Two women giving Mahoney as their surname visited the son of the Como family, Charles, as he was working in New York, claiming that Jerome was in fact a man named Jeremiah from Mobile, Alabama, that had ran away from home as a child. One of them resembled Jerome enough to possibly be a relative, and even gave Como a letter for Jerome to read. Upon receiving the letter, however, Jerome became visibly agitated and burned it, destroying possible clues to his identity. The legless man would live for nearly 50 years in the area, never communicating beyond grunts and gestures. Likely he had suffered brain damage or psychological trauma, from his ordeal that had hampered his ability to speak. The man they named Jerome would pass away on April 12, 1912, taking his secrets to the grave. With so many actors in play throughout history, it stands to reason that some would avoid identification. What their true names were, or what goals their schemes work towards, can only be debated. For now, let's find out who keeps taking the last cookie from the jar.